Megan.
Sheila.
We're here again.
We're back.
We're back.
And we had a incredible lady.
Oh my God.
Incredible lady. We use my proper grammar. Terry Lippincott.
I want to be her when I grow up.
So many people have said that when they first meet her.
Yeah.
I've heard so many women especially say, I want to be Terry Lippincott when I grow up.
Just her attitude.
Yeah.
You know, like she values the community so much to the point where she's putting in all of these hours in retirement and even before retirement.
I know. Can you call it retirement, really?
Right. When you're working more than you were when you were not retired. Well, maybe that's why they call it retirement. You're just retired. You're just tired again from different things.
Yeah.
But no, it was so inspiring.
Yeah.
To hear everything that she has done for the community, the spirit that she has for the community.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes to show you can start small.
Yeah.
And just go where your passion is and you can accomplish such big things.
I loved how she talked about, did she say volunteer stewardship? Was that the
the
phrase that
was
she
the
used?
phrase.
But I really appreciated that she centers people at all of the work that she does.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of the reason that we mentioned during the podcast that people kind of follow her into spaces is because they're responding to that. You know, she sees not just a job to be filled or a need within an organization, but she understands that it's so valuable to the volunteer if you get them in the right fit.
Right.
And that you bring them along and care for them in the process. And I think it's funny because she was talking about, a community that shows up for each other and that you can call on 200 people that are within your circle now and always fill the needs. But I think it's because there's so many people, and you said this, like Terry, who are cultivating that sense of belonging that people are just responding to.
Right.
So it's both, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the circle that sort of feeds itself on each side. And I think she's just like the embodiment of that, like if you want to see the type of person that loves and gives to their community and why we have that strong feeling of belonging here.
Right.
Just get to know Terry,
She's such a connector, and that's the skill set. That's her. But without giving too many things away, here is our episode with Terry Lippincott.
Enjoy.
Megan.
Sheila.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, good now that we have our guest here today.
Such a great guest.
I know. I'm excited.
Me
I feel like I
too.
say that about every guest, but
how did it take us 4 seasons to get Terry Lippincott on this podcast?
Well, now there's the question.
Yeah.
There is the question.
She's like, yeah, why?
She's like, I've been waiting for you
Wait,
guys.
how
to.
long you guys been doing this?
I mean, this is our first season. You're
I'm very happy to be
here.
Thrilled.
We wanted to be prepared and experienced enough to have you
I'll buy
grace
that.
our studio.
I'll buy that. And the bridge you're selling out back.
That's right.
Thank you for joining us
Of course.
today.
Yes, welcome, Terry.
Thank you.
We're so excited to have you here. So if you don't mind starting off by telling us, how did you come to Snohomish originally? How long have you been here?
Well, I grew up in Epic, just across the valley, and a Sunday drive to the Dairy Queen, which is now J&L Barbecue, right on the corner.
That used to be a Dairy Queen?
That used to be a Dairy Queen.
I did not know that.
I knew there was one somewhere, but I didn't know that's what it was.
There was one later on Avenue D, but that was my childhood. That was a Sunday drive, and I remember coming on the River Road and thinking, we're going to get there. When are we there? Are we there yet? Then I started my teaching career out in Sultan. In 1979, because I'm old. And when my daughter was just about ready to start kindergarten, I was ready to make a move. And I looked around at what I thought were really great communities and schools. And I was going to apply to Snohomish, Lake Washington and North Shore, and Snohomish posted first. And I jumped on it, and I was lucky enough to be hired. So I came down here in 89.
Wow.
And what were you teaching?
Well, initially, I am a middle school teacher, and
God bless the middle school teachers.
It's a certain kind of person, and it's my jam. And I was so eager to get her into the Snohomish school system. The elementary positions posted first, and so I jumped on those, and I ended up teaching the 4-5-6 program, which is an accelerated program with 3 different grade levels. And I was at Seattle Hill Elementary. That was my first placement, and it was great. But again, I'm a middle school teacher. So at the end of the year, I applied to be over at Valley View Middle School. And I was lucky enough to get accepted under Jerry Simisich. And then later, Jerry's son, Ryan Simisich, who's a teacher at Centennial, was my student teacher.
Oh, wow.
So that was really fun.
Small world,
really
right?
fun to have that connection. So it was both knowing the community. It was also wanting my daughter to start out in what I thought was a very stable and well thought of school system.
So you said knowing the community. So did you already know like people in Snohomish but before you came here?
That's a good question. Not necessarily. Growing up, Snohomish to me was the farm kids who always won at football. Because they spent the summer bucking hay, and so we always in Everett always got beat by Snohomish. So I didn't necessarily know a lot of people, but I'd heard really good things about the district, and from that, then the parents and the kids. So no, I kind of came in blind.
Yeah. Well, you're so integrated into the community now. Like we know you from so many places, and I'm sure we can spend the rest of the evening
how do we
listing
introduce Terry?
Right.
Like, Terry is the just point to any organization in Snohomish, and that is where Terry is.
Well, I've been here a while, and I started out not only teaching, but I was so interested in literacy that I was on the library board, which at the time when I first came to town was a city board. Because it was housed, the Snow Isle system rented the Carnegie building from the city. And so,
That's interesting, though, that they would form a board when all it is a tenant.
Correct. But it was also, I think, important to the city to have a connection into the library system. And so it was my foray into sort of city politics was library board. And then when we built I call it the new library, when we built the new library in 2003, I can't believe it's that old. I moved over then from the library board because it dissolved and moved over into, because the current library is a Snow Isle building. It's owned by Snow Isle.
Gotcha.
So the Carnegie was left vacant. And
listen to previous episode
for a while.
Nice plug.
For all of that.
Right. And that is kind of how I got snookered onto the Carnegie board was that I remembered that library so fondly and wanted to see that building saved and honored and respected like it is today.
So you were part of those efforts.
Oh, yes.
From the beginning?
Not necessarily the beginning. I had stepped over from the library board onto the Friends of the Library and served on that. Well, I was a member for a long time and then stepped into the presidency when Penny Ferguson retired. And so I was sort of keeping an eye on the Carnegie and watching the efforts. But I didn't join the Carnegie board. I think I've been on about 7, 8 years now.
Okay.
And that
half
was
of the time.
Right. That was at the time that. So I had to laugh when I was talking about joining the board. I was saying, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money to donate, but I know a lot of people and I can fill a room. And so those were the days of the town hall meetings to convince the city council and state representatives that that building was worth saving and finding money to do that. And we did.
Yeah.
So I've been on that ever since.
It takes all sorts of different talents to bring something like that together.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting. Maybe it's because I also don't have any money. But when I was listening to Melody talk about all the efforts behind the Carnegie, I didn't even think about money. I think about people,
People power,
Yeah, I think about volunteers, talent, advocates.
Right.
And I know that money is necessary. And I always imagine it's the people that have to go out and find the funding elsewhere. But I never would have imagined that a reason to maybe incorporate somebody could be that they would want to invest. And I love that you're like, I couldn't invest, but I have all these other.
But you know people. And you can fill a room.
And that's another form of investment, right? It's people investment.
Yes. Social capital that you build after a while. And I served on the Snow Isle Foundation board. I chaired that for until I was term limited.
Yeah. So I think I've already exceeded one hand.
So, and that was fun. That was to learn the whole Snow Isle system, the 24 libraries and how it operates in Snohomish and Island County. And that was always fascinating to me. But I grew up in the Everett Library, which was, a place we hung out a lot as kids. And my mother was a huge reader. And I think that's where I got my love of literacy.
I was just about to ask where the passion for literacy came from.
Both my parents were big readers. And I remember initially growing up, so my family's from Eastern Washington, and they were the only ones to sort of immigrate over the mountains. When we would go visit in Chelan, Wenatchee, they called us the fast kids from the coast, the 206ers. They were like, be careful around those 206ers. You know, they're going to bring big city ways, right? I have a vague memory of a bookmobile coming to the neighborhood in Wenatchee. And then I lived in Bellevue for a little while as a kindergartner, and I'm sure we used the library there, but I have such fond memories of the Everett Library, the children's section there.
I love libraries myself. Yeah. I love, we went to the library all the time, and we lived in Shoreline when I was little. It was still Seattle. It was North Seattle before Shoreline became incorporated at some point. So we would go to either the Broadview branch or the Green Lake branch, or what was the other one? There was a Richmond Beach branch that's been there forever. And then we got our own library in Shoreline,
that's a big deal.
The big library. And it was very exciting. Yeah, it had all these big rooms and all the resources and computers.
The only place that I know of in society isn't trying to sell you something.
Right.
Yeah. Anyone can be a member.
Yeah.
There's no initiation fee. There's no charges. I love it that we took off charges for late books and things.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yeah. It was anything that is a barrier to people reading, they try to mitigate. And in fact, Everett took off. Used to be, I think it was $60 a year if you weren't living in Everett to join the Everett Library, and now it's free.
Oh, wow. I did not realize that.
Yeah, it's kind of the way librarians think is, how can I make access easier? What can I do?
Yeah. And it's beautiful because, like you said, everything else, they're trying to sell you something.
Sure.
And at the library, it's just so peaceful.
Like, you can just kind of be there as long as you want to be there. And
There's no motivation behind it.
Nope. I'm very grateful to be involved in so I manage our book sale room at the library. And
I've gotten many a books from that place.
There you go. That's all based on the honor system.
Yeah.
And 50 cents to $1, or sometimes we will up price books that are really collectibles. But we fund all of the things that the library can't pay for because it's a public entity. It uses tax dollars. So they can't give out prizes.
Gotcha.
They can't buy food. They can't buy certain things. And we have never had to say no.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So we bring in between $800 and $1,000 a month.
Can you give us examples of some of the programs that you funded?
Absolutely. So right now, I think there are 5 elementaries that have after-school book clubs, and we pay for the books. And we also pay for the author visit.
Wow.
So the kids will all read the same book. And in fact, it's gotten so big that they had to schedule 2 events with the author. We pay for furniture, the children's rug in the library, couches. Yeah. We helped fund a state-of-the-art microfiche machine that the old ones you had to sort of scroll through, and it took a long time, and now you use it like a computer.
Wow.
And we're keyed into the Mormon genealogy site. So we had a genealogy group that meets there.
Wow.
And we'll buy snacks, those summer reading prizes, just a variety of things. Anything they need that Snow Isle can't or pay for, or it sort of outside their purview, we fund.
Wow.
And so the Friends of the Library board kind of decides all of those things or finds the needs in the community. And
so the librarian comes to us every year with a budget in January. We just approved, I think it's an $18,000 budget for the year. And again, those are things like speaker fees and author visits. And then anything that comes up beyond that, I just ask actually, there's about 10 very active members, and I just send out an email and say, can we approve this?
Wow.
And there we go.
Are you the president?
I am.
And how big is the Friends of the Library?
We have about a 50-member list and about 10 very active members.
Wow.
And then I have a group of 7 volunteers that help in the book sale room. Every day there's someone there restocking the shelves, managing the donations.
Gotcha.
And they don't want to come to a meeting.
Yeah.
So they get free membership. But
they kind of like that.
You cannot get into a meeting.
Work.
Yeah.
They just want to come in and do their day.
But like Megan said, there's every skill, right, is needed. And
absolutely.
Just because you might not think that you have the sit in a board meeting and provide advice type of skill doesn't mean that you can't still help out.
That's right.
That is awesome.
They are so dedicated. It's just amazing.
Out of my selfish curiosity, are you guys looking for new members in the Friends of the Library?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, when you come into the book sale room, on the shelf where we do sort of the monthly theme, there is a membership card, and it's extremely cheap to join.
Yeah, might have to think about that. But
we'd love to have you.
She was an avid reader too.
I love books. Yeah, I just like you guys. I grew up a lot in libraries back in Iowa. That's when I spent most of my like high school years. My friends and I would go into the library and we study. Like we meet up on weekends to study for the ACTs back in the day to do ACT prep. And the Mason City Library, which is where I grew up, they underwent a huge renovation during the time that I was kind of growing up there. And it was beautiful. They put in a cafe and they have live music, and it just became so revitalized. And it was already a beautiful, like, historic building previously, but it just brought in so much. And I used to volunteer at the library. I love books.
Oh, you're in good company then.
Yeah, I know.
Come hang out with me in the book room. I'll show you the super secret backstop room.
Ooh.
Might have to do that. But so then, is the Snow Isle Library, is there a different board, or is it run by a different thing outside
Board of
of the
Trustees.
I see.
So there's two separate entities. There's the Snow Isle Board of Trustees, and there's an executive director, and all of the staff at all of the libraries are under the auspices of the Board of Trustees. The foundation is different. The foundation is the nonprofit arm, and then the Friends of the Library they're connected with each individual library. And so we have a very active...
So you're the Friends of the Snohomish Library.
Correct. And we have such a literate community. Every day there's an area to drop books.
We are illiterate.
Just want to make sure we heard you correctly.
So they donate books, and then we also get overages from the library. And I would not be surprised to say on an average we take in about 100, 200 books a day.
Wow. That's a lot.
I recently joined a book club, and I have been reading so much more since I joined a book club. I'm reading too many books, I think, right now. Like I think it's just inspired I've always liked reading, but I don't prioritize it. And now having to read,
you don't want to disappoint the other members of book club.
But it's making me read all these other books. But your home is like, everybody knows that's where you go for the free little library outside someone's house. Like, you're famous. Everyone's like, the house on A.
If I give someone directions, I will say it's the gray house, and it has the little library. Oh, I know where that is.
Yeah.
I got a book there.
I got a good book there.
I sometimes stand in the window and watch people, and if they leave without a book, I'm like, whoa.
You know what's so funny? When I would walk the dog before I met you, I would stop at yours often, and I even knew there's good books in there.
Yeah, it makes me feel good.
That's a good one.
It's the only volunteer job I have that costs me money.
Yeah.
So you've been on this Friends of the Library since, you said, then 2003. So that's been a pretty long time now. But what else are you in? Because we know you're in a lot of other things.
What are you currently in?
Currently, well, I'm lucky enough to be involved with and facilitate a women's charity circle. It's called Women Taking Over the World Giving Circle, and it just celebrated a 10-year anniversary. It was started
Women
by
Taking Over the World Giving Circle. I love it.
Yep,
Robin Hood Women Edition.
I give here, take there. We meet the second Monday of the month, and it is a group of women. It was started by Deb Carlson Gould in 2013, 14.
She was the ED of HDSA.
She was.
No way.
Yeah.
Small world.
Small world. And her thought was, I'd love to be able to give more money than I have. I don't have a lot, but how can I bundle my impact? And so she reached out to, in the beginning, it was a lot of women in business in downtown. So that we start at 11:30, which is typically a lunch hour. So women who are working can come.
Oh, that's cool.
And I keep it to about 40 to 50 minutes. And someone from the group pitches to nonprofits, and they need to come in prepared. And we don't bring in professionals. We don't have professional fundraisers. So it's someone from the group, what they care about, and they pitch it, and the women, we all chat about it and advocate, and we vote, and your buy-in is $20.
Oh, wow.
Or
that's
more.
Cool.
Yeah.
And we've probably given about $100,000 in that period of time. With the number of people and women in the group, we have about 40 that are very regular, and then we have some online givers, and it's about $1,000 a month.
That's not
And sometimes
bad.
it goes to little scrappy charities, and sometimes it goes to much larger, like Red Cross during natural disasters and things. So that's really wonderful to be associated with that group.
Yeah.
I was on the planning commission for about 12 years. That was amazing learning experience. And a recent vacancy came up.
Wonder how.
What happened?
And I finally decided for years I have been managing and behind the scenes on local campaigns. And I finally decided that I felt comfortable enough and legitimate enough to throw my hat in the ring.
I mean, if I was legitimate enough, Terry, I mean, my goodness.
It took me a long time. I would say probably 15 years ago, Barbara Bates, who was an auntie
We've
in
heard
the community,
amazing things about her.
said to me, "You need to get on planning and then you're going to be ready for city council." And she was very
she wasn't
smart.
wrong.
Yeah.
She was not wrong.
Yeah.
So it's been an honor to make the cut and be able to serve.
It was actually really surprising to me when I heard that this was your first time on city council, because for some reason in my head, I was under the impression that you were, very similar to a lot of the other ladies in the circle or in the, this community where y'all have been in the council in and out throughout the years. And I was like, no way, this is actually Terry's first time. She is everywhere.
In fact, I had to laugh. I am also in the Lions Club and I do a lot of volunteer organizing. And I was over at the opening of the new office for the National Guard. And Sarah introduced me as, and she finally said, "An employee of the city?"
Yeah.
You work for the
I
city,
remember
right?
that. I was there for that. That was really funny.
Explain that I was a volunteer because I organized National Night Out. And that's how I got to meet her. So that's been fun.
But I think that's a testament to a couple things. A is that you don't have to serve in, formal positions to be a recognized contributing member of the community. That, people know you everywhere we go. Almost 90% of the events that I go to in Snohomish, I run into you, which I love.
Me too. Me too.
But that, you can really make an impact through whatever venue you want to. And it's never too late to start something new.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. 12 years on the planning commission and you're like, finally, I'm ripe enough.
I'm okay. I can do this. I kind of feel like I'm going in. We met in the same room. So taking that seat at the table seemed familiar, which was fortunate.
That is nice.
It is nice. And I've been attending city council for, I'm going to say decades now.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things would come up that I care about, and I was interested in what was going on. This is a community that I love, and I've always been interested in how government works. I taught history, so fascinated with how government works, and even who is it that said Tip O'Neill said all politics are local. And I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
So sometimes I can be overwhelmed with the national scene, and it always inspires me and helps me be refreshed to volunteer locally.
Yeah.
I will say this about volunteering, you get more than you give.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
For sure. And I think that's a good point to make, that, at the national level, sometimes it feels like we can't do anything, or like the things that we do don't impact at that great scale, but that your local venues are still a venue to make a contribution and to directly impact the people in your community.
Yeah.
And there's always a way to do something.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think some of the biggest civic leaders are just engaged community leaders. In
fact, that was something I had to think about, in that I'm on a different sort of level on city council. And for the longest time, I worked behind the scenes and helping to get people elected and watching from afar. And now I'm in the middle of it. And that's been interesting.
Yeah. How has that been for you? Because for me personally, without all of the experience that you have, like, I was very green. But what I do have experience with is business, strategic thinking, bringing people together, and the community here in Snohomish. And in my mind, I was like, that's enough to advocate for.
Sure.
And I was expecting like all of these crossover areas, and that was kind of there. But what I really realized was like, this is such a different job, and there's so much being thrown at you all the time. You don't really have many opportunities. I bet your experience is different. But for me, I was like, I don't really have many opportunities where I feel like this is the thing that I'm knowledgeable and passionate about, And it also moves so slow.
Glacial. And it's a glacial pace. Yes.
Sherry Ireton told me that.
Yes.
She was like, government moves at glacial speeds is one of the first things she told me. And I was like, not for me. This was with my HDSA hat on when I met her as I'm HDSA, she's City of Snohomish. And I was like, we'll see about that. But no, she's right. There's just so many things that you can't just force along. And I think you understand process more since you've been on the planning commission and you've been attending so many city council meetings for a long time. But you're also a doer. So how has that been? I mean, I know it's been a month. But with your familiarity of that, does that cause any friction for you internally?
It'll be interesting. I mean, it has just been a month. And I came in with things that I care deeply about. Affordable housing being preeminent, taking care of our vulnerable populations. That is really important to me. Certainly filling potholes and paving streets and making sure the lights
all the
are
necessary things.
And the water's running. That is all very important. What I learned about politics long ago is it's not a good idea to run on a single issue or a grudge. People come into politics, whether it's national or I was involved with state politics for a long time, or even city. And you quickly realize, like you said, that you are part of something bigger. And the things that you care about, there will be a chance to perhaps move that needle somewhat, but you can't come in and expect to be able to do everything all at once or take over because you're part of a team, a collaborative team. And I think my experiences in the classroom with middle schoolers especially, and team teaching taught me a lot about sometimes it won't be the way I would do things, but it's still going to get done. And I need to accept that that's okay.
The compromise.
The compromise, exactly. And that there will be differing opinions. Sometimes we approach things very differently. And I think that as long as we treat each other with respect and we understand where each of the members of the council and staff come from is important. So it will be very interesting with the change in the administration and the priorities that council has set. We're the legislative branch. The mayor is the executive. So it is our job to set those goals, the mission, and then the mayor is supposed to execute those. So it will be interesting. I'm not sure how it will go, but it will go.
Yeah, it always does.
I know that. Yes. So
I
did not
appreciate that about the council model. You know, like you're saying, you have different people that have different ideas. And I think it's nice when you have a good mix.
Absolutely. It's important.
Yeah.
It's important to understand that you're not the only person in the room. You're not the only voice. I have observed from afar other municipalities not get along. And it's not good for the city. It's not good for the people. And I've always been very impressed with the civility on council over the time that I've been here, even when there were obvious differences. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciated that too. And I remember the first time I was always so nervous. Like I never had enough time to really even acclimate. But towards the end of my time, I did start getting a little bit more comfortable and confident. And I remember the first time I said something and then another council member pushed back and I was like, yes. I'm so glad that happened.
I've arrived.
But I feel like a lot of people nowadays are so afraid of having a healthy debate
dialogue
or a healthy conflict. Like conflict can be healthy, right? And you guys are making decisions that quote unquote govern such a diverse population, a complex system, right? And you cannot attack problems just from a singular point of view. So it's like you want to hear what the other people are, or you should want to hear what the other people are saying. But I love that you said like you cannot lead with a grudge because that makes you so single pointed and so hyper focused on just that one thing to get that chip off your shoulder.
Yes. Yep. And they typically then when someone comes in and having run, and I've personal experience with watching that, they don't last.
Yeah.
They get frustrated, they get burned out, they quit, they're ineffective.
Right, because their one thing didn't happen the way that they wanted to.
Or it did and now they're gone.
Yeah.
Or the one thing that really bothers me that I've seen, not really here in Snohomish, and not necessarily only in politics, but like when somebody just doesn't like a person for whatever reason, and then no matter what that person says, even if it's something that you would otherwise agree with, they will choose not to for the sake of holding that grudge or keeping that stance against that person. And that's just
But that's
so
such
shameful.
human nature, though, right? Like you have your intrinsic biases that comes with you, and it takes so much awareness and thinking through your feelings and being okay with and knowing that, oh, I'm being biased now. I am thinking this thought because I have this impression of this person.
Right.
And it takes a type of person to get through that.
Or it's just a skill you have to learn. Maybe some people don't even know that they're doing it. The story is so deeply ingrained in their mind.
Right. You have to step aside and look at it objectively.
Right.
Yeah. It's not always easy.
But I think that's where having people around you also helps, right?
And
I
different
think
types of people.
And different types of people. And I see, Terry, the company that you surround yourself with, you're in good company.
Well, I certainly am right here. But no, I really feel lucky to, when you come into a community as a teacher, because this is a community that has an amazing connected group of people that are multi-generational.
Yeah.
And my friends will say, well, that's the so-and-so house. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. All right. Is that important? But being the teacher, you sort of have an artificial in, and that was really helpful to get connected with parents and families and outside groups and things. And so I think that I had a leg up coming in. You asked me earlier if I knew people here, and the answer was no, but I quickly became part of, because of my experience in the classroom. And that's just always been really wonderful.
Do you think that's part of the reason why you came to love and care about this community so much? It's because you actually knew so many people. Because I feel like that's one of the things that can feel kind of isolating, right? When you move to a new community, you don't know anyone, and you kind of keep yourself in just your little hole, and you keep moving with your life. But it's like if you were exposed to everyone's problems, then you're like, oh, there's so many people that I can take care of.
Yes. And then you start seeing them outside of the classroom. My daughter, I would go to the store. She would be in the car with me. I said, I'm just going to run in. She's like, I'm not coming in. Yeah. And I said, I'm just going to be a minute. She's like, I'm not coming in. You're going to be 25 minutes. I know it.
Amy
and
does
she was
that
right,
to me too.
because you run into so many people. And then I started discovering there were lots of connected groups outside of the classroom that I could make a difference. The library board, for example. I had to stop teaching early. I have lupus, and a full day in the classroom was really difficult.
Gotcha.
And having to do that was really hard. Just really difficult. If I'm not the teacher, who am I? So it took me a while to sort of figure out how to manage that. And then start looking around for, well, what can I do? I can't be in a classroom for 8-10 hours. What can I do? Oh, I can volunteer over here. Oh, I can step up and do this at the library. I can. And then it blossomed from there into a full-time job. So
I know. I think you put more hours in than I do sometimes. Or like I'll try to book something with her, and she's like, let me see my calendar when I'm available. She's not tomorrow.
In 3 weeks and 2 days, I can fit you in.
Isn't that just, and I find that just so wonderful. To be that connected and to be able to offer services. It didn't start out that way, though. It takes time to build that and build that social capital, and to be able to call people. And I'm sort of known around town, I guess, as the volunteer coordinator.
You are. I remember, I think one of the first times I met you was when Trent was running the Snohomish Zombie Walk.
Yes.
And I think we needed volunteers to set up like one of the photo booth sections.
Yes.
And they're like, oh yeah, Terry from the Lions Club is coming, and she's going to have a gaggle of people with her. And we're like, wonderful.
I know. But I introduced Katie to her for that reason.
Right. And you do
I'm
that
like,
everywhere.
If you can't find volunteers, reach out to Terry, because she will find you somebody, you know.
It's an honor. It really is. I don't take it lightly. I find that, like I said, volunteering, you get more than you give, but it's really wonderful to meet people. For example, the women's circle. I had been here 20 years, and I thought I knew a lot of people, and I met women in the group I'd never met before, and you just realize that it's never too late to make new friends, to find yourself a spot in society or your community to be useful. And I will hear people say, well, I'm just bored. I don't know what to do. And I'm interested. Well, reach out. Show up at a Lions meeting, go to the senior center, or ask around. Go to the school, see if you can volunteer there. There's so much to do.
There's so much to do.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, you kind of alluded to this before, like one thing kind of leads to the next thing, because most volunteers that I've met, at least, they're not just like, I only volunteer here. They usually love to contribute in different ways. And so that one volunteer opportunity that you might step into, the person that you meet there will likely tell you about something else that's going on that might pique your interest. And that's a whole secondary community now that you can have within.
Well, and I think as I age, finally learning to manage. So, for example, in the Lions Club, I do a lot of volunteer coordinating and organizing. And I was membership chair, and taking on this new responsibility with city council, I thought, that's tough. So I stepped off of that. And now once we're done here, I head to my Lions meeting.
Of course.
but balancing that and saying, if I try to do too much, then I'm not as effective. And then it's frustrating and it's not fun. And so I was just recently at a leadership conference for Snohomish County tomorrow, I believe it was, and they asked me to talk about volunteering. And I think probably one of the most important lessons I've learned is you have to walk before you can run. So I was on library board before I stepped over to the Friends, and I was on the Friends for years before I stepped into the president role. You know, it took me a long time, how many years, to finally decide that I was up for city council. I didn't want to come in without having served on a board or a commission. I wanted to feel as if I had some foundation before I took on that position. So I think that's probably the best advice to give to someone who's looking to volunteer. Because sometimes you'll get into an organization and they'll try to make you president right away. Or you're like,
I've never done that to anybody.
Definitely no one.
I can spot potential. We'll put it that way.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. But I've seen that backfire where people are put in positions too fast.
Yeah, for sure.
And they don't feel comfortable. And so for the good of the organization, I always say, let's just take our time.
We talk about that actually a lot within the Main Street community, and also just within all the nonprofits. Like, we're part of NAWA, you know, the what is it? Nonprofit Association of Washington, something or other.
Sure.
But so it's a kind of a universal thing that I've been learning as I've been working in the nonprofits, that like the leadership pipeline is an important thing for you to focus on in your organization for that purpose. That's like, have these entry-level interests that you can bring people into.
Yes.
They can see how your organization works. They can learn more about, you know, what it takes to run it, aside from just that job that they might be doing that day. And then get them integrated into the other programs and things, move them into committees, move them into being a committee chair, and then up to that board level, you know. And
I think that's a great recipe for success.
I think we're finally getting there.
And then they stick. And you watch them grow, and they become more confident, and then everybody wins.
Yeah, and there's so many skills that you see developed too. That's really cool. Or like, we had this this gentleman come to just redistribute the crossing flags.
Oh,
and when he came, I was like, "What made you want to come volunteer with us today?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm actually really interested in government." But I didn't really know where to start. And I thought, well, this is a volunteer opportunity, so I'm going to start here. And I was like, we actually have a government and nonprofit committee.
Oh, there you go.
If you'd be interested in learning more about that. And I think now he's working on a database project that he just got kicked off here with us. So you just never know what the little entry point is. Like, that was just, it's so easy. It's a half an hour moving flags around. But the flags is not the thing that draws the person in, right?
Absolutely.
It's because they have an interest in something.
Right.
They want to participate. They want to find that community.
Right.
And then what else can you kind of draw out where you might have other opportunities,
Absolutely.
either within your organization or someone else's, you know?
I do love the flags, by the way.
I love the flags
My
too.
favorite is watching the little kids march.
I love watching the adults. Like, they get so excited when they see the flag. Like, I'm seeing, you know, the 40-year-old dudes like being like, ha, flag, and then they just wave it wildly across the street in the dark.
Me now?
Yeah, I love it. It's fun for everyone.
And actually, the other day I was driving somewhere with one of the children on 2nd Street, and it was getting dark. It was like dusk, and I saw the flag first before I saw the guy, and I was like,
works.
Yes, look at that. My own program working for me. I was so happy.
Nice. Yeah, they're a brilliant idea, and sort of low cost, elegant solution to getting people across.
We just got to make sure we redistribute them all the time.
I have 2 huge boxes sitting on the bench right now. Volunteer opportunity upcoming.
Upcoming. I'll get you that person if you need it.
I'm sure you
Let
will.
me know.
Do you ever come across people, since you've worked in so many volunteer coordinator type roles, though, that are hesitant to jump in? That, you know, you see them have that glimmer of interest, but, you know, they're just not going over the threshold to actually like start in order to snowball into what Megan is talking about, right? Because I hear from, you know, some people where they're like, oh, theoretically, it would be nice to do this, or I wish I could do this. And in my head, and I think because I'm so used to, being around you guys, it's like, well, yeah, email them, go contact someone. But like, have you ever come across like people who you're like, let's scooch you in a little further?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And I think what helps is meeting them where they're at. And I mean, literally meeting them at the door and saying, I'll escort you in. I will introduce you around. I know you can do this, having that confidence in them, but not overconfidence. And also, I learned long ago in politics, when you have volunteers and it does all, you just thank them. And you do it with grace, and you respect that maybe that wasn't exactly their thing, but volunteers, I mean, a volunteer is a very valuable resource, and they're doing their best, and sometimes it's not a good fit. But I think if you take the time to know the person, to get to know them. I have a new person starting on Wednesday in the book sale room. They were a little nervous, but I know they love to read. So you find common ground, you bring them in, you train them. You don't cut them loose without the proper training and support. You check in. How's it going? You leave little notes, and you just, it's volunteer stewardship. That is really important to make them understand how valuable they are.
We need to coin that.
Volunteer stewardship. I'm going to add that to some of our values.
But I know I've been guilty as, someone who organizes events. And when you're in the thick of it and you're running around with your head cut off, or like, trying onboarding or doing that stewardship and holding someone's hand to fully integrate them can be difficult.
It can be, especially like you said, when you're in the middle of it and you just assume everyone knows what their jobs are.
Exactly.
How do they not know that this is supposed to go here? That can be, yes.
Approaching it with that empathy and that patience and the, hey, I see you where you're at. Let's go along together.
Or finding the Terry in the group to do that for you.
Exactly.
Like she said, delegating, and kind of identifying people's strengths that way so that you can maximize your impact.
So I've learned over the years, you want to make sure that if it doesn't work out, that they don't leave feeling like they were a failure. And recognizing why didn't it work, and maybe there's another place for you over here that will be better than. I was talking to Megan earlier about my siblings, and I have a sister who lives in town, and she's 14 months older, and she is an introvert. She is. We are polar opposites. And I have sometimes tried to push her into things. And she's my older sister, so she will just say, full stop, nope, not doing it. But finding what works for her, and then encouraging her and watching her find her way here. She's only been here about 6 years. Love the community.
Did you pull her in?
I would think that she's been here a lot longer.
It feels that way, right? Did I pull her in? I feel like yes, I have.
I think people follow Terry in. I don't think she has to pull anybody.
It took a long time. She and my oldest sister were going to buy a house together initially over in Port Orchard, and I remember like, oh. And then she moved away and was away for quite a long time. And then when she decided to finally retire for the 5th time and settle down, she said, I'm coming to Snohomish. And I'm like, I win. Yay.
So, well, and we all won. I love Deb.
Yep. Deb has become very involved.
And the two of us, 2 introverts, were able to sit at a table and have a conversation while we waited for you. So
there you go.
We did it.
There you go. You find each other. Yeah, absolutely.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's been fun to have her here.
Yeah,
really nice.
Well, we're getting towards the end without keeping you here all night because you have a Lions Club meeting to go to, of course.
Time flies, right?
It really does.
And we like to allow enough time to ask this question because it usually
takes about 15 minutes.
Wow.
Well, you'll see why, because it's a hard question.
All right.
But our last question for our guests is, please define or describe, that's the word I want, your perfect day in Snohomish. What does that look like? Coming over to Megan's house. I know.
Hanging out with Amy.
Seeing Sheila downtown. So I would say it starts with getting up early enough to see the sunrise, which...
You are not a morning person, as I recall.
I am not a morning person. So they're just about a perfect day. Not a real day, just perfect day. Would be
you wake up with just a renewed energy for life, and the sun is rising.
Out my window, my bedroom window, my slider. I'd have a nice latte, and I would get up and go out and turn on the fireplace, and I would check my schedule. First, then I would have my daughter visiting from Brooklyn. she's much later sleeper than I am. So I would bring her coffee. I would check my schedule, and it would be filled with
so many things.
And I would, at the end of the day, look back and say, I was able to do the list. And sometimes I put really easy stuff on the list, like, get up.
Yeah. You got to throw yourself a bone, right?
Check. Yeah. Done. Get up. Have your coffee. Done. It would be being certainly downtown for at least part of the day.
Yeah.
Meeting friends for coffee. It would be seeing people I hadn't seen in a long time and doing something that I felt moved the needle for the things that I care about.
Yeah.
And that might be at the library. It might be at the food bank. It might be at Alliance meeting. But it's a day filled with people and people I love and care about. And maybe even finding something extra to do that I hadn't thought about or seeing someone that needed just that little bit that day. Because that's really important to me, is to be aware, again, with that sort of what's going on nationally, taking care of our neighbors and making sure our vulnerable population is housed and fed, and they have places to go that make them feel valuable. This is a really, I would wish that every community was like Snohomish, and I don't know that it is.
Yeah.
I find it sort of a unicorn in that when someone says to me, hey, I need Halloween crossing guards, I need a photo booth, I need this, I need that, I can reach out to 200 people. And in that group, there will be enough. I've never felt like I didn't have that ability to connect and reach out and fill the need that arises. And it's can be very different.
Yeah.
So I think this community, I said, is very literate. Huge donations come into the library. At the food bank, we spend a lot of time in the Lions Club supporting and out collecting food drives. It's just a community that gives and that cares about each other. When you look at the flood cleanups that are going on with people just showing up, it's encouraging, it's uplifting. And again, I would hope that every community felt this way. I'm not sure that that's true.
But I think part of it is because this community has people like you, right? People that make those connections, people that do and serve others, and people see you as inspiration and as a model, and that gets them out the door and helping and serving the community, and you get the snowball rolling, right?
Yeah.
I hope so. I also think First Street is such a unique entity, and HDSA has done such an amazing job sort of promoting and encouraging what makes First Street special. The river, all of that it's an unusual place. And I think, when the bypass came in and Second Street stopped being Highway 2, that helped. That all helped. So it's a very special place, and I feel privileged to live here.
I feel like it's our privilege to have you in our community.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and such a privilege to know you, and
that's a
work
lovely
alongside
thing.
be part
you.
of your circle.
Yeah.
Well, I admire both of you and all that you're doing.
Thank you.
And it's I love this. This is my first podcast.
Ooh.
Is this your first podcast?
It is.
I'm surprised.
It is.
First
We're
of
so
many,
honored.
hopefully, because you did great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, people are going to hear and be like, oh, we need to get her on our podcast now. Yeah.
Well, I think knowing you both has helped.
Well, thank you so much, Terry. Yes. It was lovely to share your stories with everybody else and give you just even more of a platform. Not that you need it, but we're honored that you were willing to spend your time with us. And I hope that everybody who watched or listens just feels inspired. That there's so much that you can do with your time, and that there's really just endless potential for how you might receive back from
that's right
from what you're doing.
That's right. And I started small.
Yeah. And if you want to know how to get started,
contact Terry.
Give me a call. I don't have any way.
She will put you in a volunteer slot in no time.
Yeah. You'll get plugged right in.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Terry.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Snohomish Storytellers, brought to you by the Historic Downtown Snohomish Association, produced by Red Trucks.